All right, we are back. Welcome, everyone. This is no longer Aluminum Tarot. We are actually Crucible Tarot at this point, and these are for reasons that I'll explain in a podcast in the near future. But I felt, in a long story short, that it was time for me to rebrand, to kind of focus on something that was a bit closer to the heart for the reason as to why I was creating this channel in the first place and the types of messages that I want to create. I do not like to be a love and light type of person all the time. I think that's a very airy-fairy way of doing things. And especially in today's new age world, I think it's time for us to get back to the brutal reality of who we are and what we have to endure or overcome in this lifetime. And I think that we need to focus on the shadow as much as we need to focus on the light. And I'll go on my own tirade a bit later on, but that's pretty much the crux of why I decided to rebrand. Nevertheless, we are going to be speaking today about Libra, Sun, Moon, and Rising for the month of June 2026. It's going to be basically when you need to hear it, the information that's related to that. And so, yeah. Order of the day is as always, if you like what you see here, please be sure to give a like, share, subscribe, ding that notification bell so you don't miss any updates from future postings, and just support the channel as you see fit, and all support is appreciated as well. So that said, I'll be reading from several decks here. We'll firstly start reading from this tarot deck, the Oracle of Emanations, this Angel Arium deck, which is one of my favorites, made by Peter Moorbacher, which is, I believe he's based in the United States now, but just an incredible set of Oracle cards. One of my favorite that actually focus on the archangels. Some decks actually focus on the Watchers as well, or as they were known as the Grigori in antiquity, or the Irin in Aramaic. So after that, we have the Moonology Oracle deck. This is a favorite, created by Yasmin Boland, and many people in the tarot community use this deck to talk about things in terms of cycles of the moon, the different messages that each of those cycles communicates. As I was born on a Monday as well, this is a very, I guess, home-hitting card for me, because I like to talk about how things are in constant flux. One of the tenets of Hermeticism is that things are never static. They are constantly moving, constantly in flux. And this allows for the universe to carry out its will and to remain eternal in many ways. Because as long as you keep moving, things continue to exist. And then finally, last but not least, we have a beautiful deck here from a woman known as Luna Marie. So we have the Warrior of Love Tarot. And Luna Marie, I explained to everyone, and I'll continue to explain to everyone, I had the chance of meeting her in Watkins Books in London not too long ago. And she was very, very nice, very, very learned about tarot, and had a very illustrious career of doing tarot card readings for people. So we spoke briefly. She was able to sign the deck and everything, and I find the deck to be quite nice. It's very beautifully illustrated, has some very good information connected to the modalities of each of the cards, and their planetary and their sign configuration, which coincides with its meaning. And I thought that was really, really nice the way this is done. So you'll see that as I read, throughout the cards here. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and look into the first we have here for Libra, Sun, Moon, and Rising. So it's going to be, again, for the month of June 2026. We have Archangel Gabriel. And Archangel Gabriel is the Archangel of Heralds. And what we're looking at here, I want to study Archangel Gabriel a bit more. I do understand about Archangel Michael, very familiar with Samael, looking at Archangel Phaneol, if I'm not mistaken. And how they resonate throughout the ages. Archangel Gabriel is kind of, from what I understand about him, it's a very powerful voice of God. So it's kind of like when God needs to communicate to the human race, it does so in these massive revelations, and that's what Gabriel represents. So you oftentimes see in the judgment card, Archangel Gabriel is the one blowing its trumpet to revive the dead that are coming out of their coffin. So it's when God says it's time for us to be reborn, then that's the archangel that is in charge of that herald. And so there are many other ones that take place within the Bible as well. And Archangel Gabriel, I'm learning a bit more about it, and I find that it's quite an interesting one. It's almost like when it speaks, it doesn't just speak to shake things up. It shakes you to your very core. I remember there was a channel, Pantheon Mythology, which is kind of following in the same vein as Esoterica, which also speaks about Gabriel as well. But they talk about how the Archangel Gabriel shatters your very core, and it leaves people swooning whenever the message is received. So it's kind of like the one that breaks open the seals as well in Revelations, if I'm not mistaken. So when you hear the trumpet blow, and then you hear about the pouring of the seal or the breaking of the seal, and then these different things come out to test the human race, or to lead to these new situations that unfold for the human race. That would be a Gabriel type thing to do. So the way this applies to an individual's life, if I'm reading this in context of Libra's, actions and their life taking place for June, there's something that's going to rock your world. It's going to shake you at your very core, a message that you receive from the heavens. These are messages that you cannot ignore. And I make that abundantly clear when I speak about this, about how when Gabriel speaks, you have no choice but to listen. It's not just like a message like, oh, you get something in the mail, someone tells you to pay your TV license, and you're basically like, yeah, I get fucked, I'm not paying that. It's not like one of those things. This is like you receiving a summons in court, and if you ignore it, then the police come for you. Or this is like you getting a message from a doctor saying you have stage 3 cancer, and if you don't do something about it, you're going to die within a year's time. Whatever the message may be, it's something that irrevocably changes your life. In this, with the Moonology Tarot deck, we have you and your loved ones are safe. This is the new moon in Cancer. So this is the start, the initiation of Cancerian energy, and this rules the family as well. So when you say you and your loved ones are safe, it's almost like you can trust that you will be able to persevere and to make it through this particular situation that is unfolding. And for you, with this judgment feeling, and I am getting judgment energy from this reading with Archangel Gabriel there. I believe also that Archangel Gabriel is an archangel of Jupiter, but I will come back to that later on. I'll need to do some research on that because it is connected to some people connect it with Sagittarius, and others sometimes connected with Scorpio. It just really depends on the system of tarot that you actually use. So what I would say, just in an intuitive level, when you have these two things, it's like there's a situation that you cannot ignore. But despite this taking place, despite you receiving this massive download, know that you're going to be okay in the end of it. It's important for you to kind of look at life knowing that you are safely trusted in the hands of the divine as this situation unfolds. And it's no mistake that the word apocalypse, that is Greek for unveiling or to make known to the public, and that is a Gabriel type thing to do. So when you hear about the apocalypse, it's not just zombies and wars and all these things coming out. It's a message. The message is to reveal to people the nature of God, the nature of the universe, and all of those things. So that said, in your life, we'll find out how this actually relates to with the tarot, which is going to give us the picture of what's taking place with you specifically. So we have the Three of Swords in the reverse. You're getting over something that has been a very difficult situation. This corresponds with Saturn and Libra. And Saturn, of course, is a very restrictive thing. Libra is the way we relate to other people, or that we find balance. So with Three of Swords, it's almost like you're trying to recover and you're healing from a heartbreak that has afflicted you in the not too distant past. The reason for that is because of the Knight of Pentacles. And as you can see here, these two figures here are similar to the lovers, but they're trying to reach out to each other, but they're still kind of stuck by these barnacles. So it's a very slow process for them to come to realization. So what is taking place for you is that maybe you're getting over a very difficult situation slowly and surely as you proceed through this healing process. And however you have been dealing with that, it's important that you find healthy mechanisms to overcome the heartbreak and the pain that you have experienced at the hands of whatever is taking place. You would know this. This is merely an algorithm. This is not merely for me to say, well, you have had this thing happen to you. Unless I specifically ask the question, which we can do that. So what has taken place in Libra's recent past that has led to this heartbreak? So you've had a Knight of Swords in the reverse and a Four of Swords in the reverse. So what this tells us is that with the Knight of Swords in the reverse, there has been a cessation. There's been a stop in communication with someone, probably an air sign, someone with air heavily in their chart. And then with the Four of Swords in the reverse, this is left with a lot of anxiety, a lot of difficulty, and trying to understand exactly how to heal from that process. Because the Four of Swords is the card of healing that comes after the Three of Swords. The Three of Swords card in the reverse, you're finding, or you're trying to find ways to heal from that. But again, the Four of Swords in the reverse, clarifying that, it's almost to say like it's difficult for you to progress into the stage of fully recovering and healing from the difficult and painful scenario. I remember someone speaking on YouTube about how the swords element or suit in the whole of the tarot is usually the one that's the most difficult one to deal with, because it doesn't really have a lot of happy cards within it. You have the one of, the Ace of Swords, clarity, Two of Swords being blocked or trying to come to a metered response, Three of Swords, heartbreak, Four of Swords, healing, Five of Swords, you're back at it, cutting people's throats, Six of Swords, moving on from a difficult situation, Seven of Swords, you get the point. Like, it's not a very happy series of cards within tarot. And it's this way because this requires strategy and it requires reflection. These are swords that deal with the mind and receiving truths and clarity. So with that said, whatever has stopped in the communication between you and the other person, it's important for you to finally reflect on that, pause, think really clearly about it, so that way you can proceed into healing your pain and difficulties fully. Because we have more swords here already. Now, in this, we talk about the Nine of Swords, which is your current energy. And the reason for this is death. Now, again, it's telling me once more that something has come to a complete stop. Whether or not this is a physical death, maybe you've lost someone or you were mourning the loss of someone that you had to let go of, or perhaps a relationship that you've had has stopped, a job has finished, and this is now starting to raise up energy within yourself that is making you feel a lot of mental anxiety, and it feels like there is no rest or respite from that. Because when you have the Nine of Swords on its side, that is Mars and Gemini. So it's a very strong feeling that is accumulating due to that aggressive energy within your mind, where it's just like, shit, what's going on? And trying to make sense of it. The mind and the ego tend to try to want to make sense of how things are taking shape and how we can deal with them. But because the Nine of Swords is coming to the completion where we get to the Ten of Swords, it's almost like you're almost at the point where you just have to drop it, because you know that it's going to lead to severe mental turmoil, potentially even mental illness if you're not careful. One of the things I'm looking at in numerology is cards that are squared or cubed. So when we have the Nine of Swords, that's two sets of threes. Three sets of threes. So you have the Three of Swords in your recent past, and now you have the Nine of Swords. So it's almost like you have tripled, you have, cubed your entire mental anguish, because it seems to be increasing exponentially at this point. Not only that, when we look at 9, 3 times 3 times 3, that's a cubic output of this number 3. Not only is 3 the number of expansion, but 9 is almost like giving me a cube, which then talks about confinement in that energy itself. So if you were dealing with this and you feel restricted, it's almost giving me like devil energy, where you become addicted to this thing that is either playing on in your mind, playing on in your body with sensuality, or playing on in your behaviors or things of that nature, your actions or even your emotions, feeling in love or addicted to pain and suffering. And psychologically, people do release a kind of endorphins related to feeling sorry for themselves, drinking, having sex to kind of escape pain and suffering, taking your anger out on people and creating chaos. If you have watched body cam footage of people and they're absolutely crashing out and getting manhandled by the police not because they're bad people per se, but they haven't been taught how to regulate their emotions and to self-soothe. This comes from a very deep psychological issue stemming from childhood. In the formative years of a person leading up to maybe like age 4 or 5, people learn how to form their neural networks and additionally self-soothe. When you have a very unequal or unbalanced approach to raising children, this is where you start to get people who cannot regulate their emotions properly. They have either undergone trauma as well, which causes this imbalance. But in this, what I'm seeing is that when you get into the devil energy, that is when you start to get into that restriction and that being binded or bound to this cubic turmoil that you have created for yourself. It's like you build yourself prison walls based on this this fixation on the past energy. And so whatever this death has caused, you can let me know in the comments below what it's related to, but it's important for you to finally address the ending that has taken place, so that way you are no longer imprisoned by this energy. There is good news. However, in the near future, we have the King of Pentacles, which is actually telling us that now I don't see you necessarily okay. It could be that you're throwing yourself into work to try to release yourself from this negative energy. But I see it almost as like you're trying to get a grip on things, and you may be working with someone who provides you with a sense of stability and a sense of understanding about your life, so that you can overcome these difficult situations. King of Pentacles does focus on their material world, so they're very successful in business and so on. But they can also be a person who has mastered their foundation as well. The card that is actually accompanying this is the Three of Wands on its side. So for you, it may be that by working to get yourself grounded, you're actually allowing for new things to come in. You're unblocking yourself from that cubic chaos that has befallen you in the current present and in the recent past. So you're moving your energy away from the swords and the swords and the pentacles. You're moving it into the pentacles and fire. So you're no longer just kind of thinking about something. You're finally taking action on things. And this is going to be really helpful for you to actually overcome the chaos that is within. Now that we move into it, we look into the outcome of all of this. We see that you have the Four of Pentacles here. And then additionally, you have the Queen of Pentacles. So there's a lot of pentacle energy coming into the near future. The outcome for June 2026 tells us more about you being able to conserve yourself, spend time alone to kind of nurture your mental health, your physical well-being as well, and to take care of yourself in a way that nurtures and protects who you are at the very core. Because without a sound body, you cannot have a sound mind. And maybe by stepping out of this Knight of Pentacles, trying to move to solve things on the material realm, you're taking a step back. You're conserving your energy, and then you're holding on to it and nurturing it as well. And this is a very important thing, because when people go through things like heartache or heartbreak, and they learn that sometimes it's better to take a step back from all of the things that we give our energy to in the external world, in the world without. When we come back and we take care of the energy that we have within, that is when we start to see our powers realize and to manifest. As you can see, there are both two women here in these cards. So what it's telling us here is that you're stepping into a more feminine energy where you can take a step back and actually kind of nurture yourself in mind, body, and spirit. And that will in turn get your mind to a state of homeostasis. Clarifying this is the Emperor. And the interesting thing about this is that this is saying to us that you are taking proactive steps to conquer and to deal with the challenges that have arisen due to this problem that you faced in the past. So this message is coming through. And if you have dealt with the loss of a loved one, and you realize that that herald has finally come, Archangel Gabriel has blown his trumpet, the person is, your life is completely changed after the loss of this individual. It's also telling you, and this is a message that I'm getting, I hope that it's accurate about it, that you and your loved one are safe. The loved one that you have lost is in a good place. So if you're worrying about that, you know, the universe is letting you know that things are in a good way, you know, despite anything that's taken place in the past. You have to recognize that when people transition, it's for the better to relieve their suffering, but additionally, to transform your life. It starts that healing process, but additionally, even more so, as they move into the next realm, that they are safe, secure, and sound. They're not burning alive in a hell. They're in a good place in which they can actually do the same process where they can sit and reflect on their life. Once they're in the house of Pisces, that's in the afterlife. Taking that long journey through that and understanding and living the experiences of their past life to digest and and to process everything, that is when you can start to see that they are making their own path towards growth and understanding and balance, just as you are in the living world, where you're trying to deal with your negative emotions and you're reflecting on them, and then you're finally becoming stable. So that is a special message for someone who needed to hear it. I'm not necessarily going to say that's everyone's case, but in the case that you did lose a loved one, then it is important for you to understand that they're in a good place. That said, if it's another situation, again, as I always explain to people, this is an algorithm that applies to your life. If it is dealing with the loss of a job, the loss of a place that you used to live in, and that has ceased to be, you're now building a new future where you're taking proactive steps and measures to build a new life elsewhere, and that you're taking the reins so that you can make this a prosperous endeavor. Because it's really difficult when we're uprooted and we have to go to a new place. We have to make new friends. We have to get a new job. We have to do all this stuff with a new house. And it's exhausting as fuck. And I've been through that myself countless amounts of times throughout my life, being an expat. Well, not even an expat. Being a wanderer of this planet and finally settling where I believe is my home and hopefully remains my home. And it can be exhausting, but when you finally say, I'm going to plant roots somewhere, I'm going to plant the seed, which is the pentacle, and start to grow my life into a place where it is going to prosper, grow, and then be fruitful, not just for yourself, but for other people as well, where you are finally making your contributions to this new environment. I would say that that is when you can say to yourself, you have taken the reins of your life, you have moved beyond the chaos of the mental prison, and now you're seeing the reality of what you're trying to achieve in terra firma. And that is going to help you out tremendously for that time. So anyways, I'm going to wrap things up here. I hope you enjoy this message to Libra. This is for Libra, Sun, Moon, Rising. And again, if you like what you see here, please be sure to give a like, share, subscribe, ding the notification bell. And instead of saying love and light at the end, because we're not love and light, as you can see, I do talk about some very dark topics here. But I'll leave you with the message that I will say at the end of each of my readings. Viam Gevura Ambulo, which means I walk the path of severity, bravery, and courage. So that's going to be it. Thank you so very much. And until next time.